Hosea 10. You know, we looked this morning on a very, very simple thing about our nation. You know, we as a nation have an obligation to God. We shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. That's just a statement. Hosea chapter 10, look verse 12 and 13. He said, sow to yourself in righteousness, reap in mercy, and break up your fallow grounds, for it's time to seek the Lord till he come and rain righteousness upon you. Ye have plowed wickedness, ye have reaped iniquity, you've eaten the fruit of lies, because thou didst trust in thy way in the multitude of thy mighty men. And the setting is what Israel is doing to get in trouble. And you find the thought in verse 13. Ye have plowed wickedness. We've sowed wickedness in our society, wickedness in our churches, wickedness in our homes. The biggest thing with the inner city right now is you have families that have no idea who dad is. Or dad is some abstract person that they see once a year. And they're raised without rules and structure. And when that happens, there's no discipline, there's no thoughts of enforcement of any rule in the house. So these children are basically reared by themselves. And that's what they act like. But it's because we've plowed to wickedness. We've allowed wickedness to take root and to grow and to flourish. You think all the things that has happened in the last 20 years that 50 years ago our forefathers would have started a war over. And we've embraced it. We plowed in wickedness. We sowed wicked seed. It's no longer a mom and a dad with children. It's now mine, hers, and ours. And if you don't think that's confusing on a child, you've tried to figure that out. Got 2 bedrooms at 2 different houses. Don't make sense, does it? But people, that's the world we've developed. We sowed wickedness. We've plowed it. We've let it grow. We've let it come to the harvest. Everything we could do wrong, we've done. And you look at what they're doing in our country right now. Anything that represents our history, they're trying to destroy. Why? Very simple, people. Very simple. They hate our past. It's symbols of, and they talk about it's symbols of oppression. They didn't know they were being oppressed till somebody told them they were. Which one are you getting at? The Smollett and the Wallace, both of them, they staged and ran with things, trying to fake some form of hate crime. Right or wrong? If racism was as bad as they claim, why do you have to fake it? Couldn't it be some legitimate racism in our world that you could just go in the store and video? Must not be as bad as they think it is. NASCAR buckled under to them. I'm not a NASCAR fan before. I definitely wouldn't watch it now. NFL, if you watch it, God help you. You're paying felons to play. I wouldn't watch that for nothing. And the NBA's worse. You think about it, people. We're paying people that can go on a job and take a knee when our forefathers fought for that flag over there and they say they're doing their job. Hello. No, we sowed the wickedness. Guess what we're reaping? Wickedness. We sowed to it, now we reap it. But we can change that. That's the thought in verse 12. Verse 12 is there's some things you can do. Keep in mind, when God got ready to judge Nineveh, he sent one man and great revival broke out. When God tried to save Sodom and Gomorrah, Abram started talking to him. They started at 50 and they got all the way down to 10. Sodom and Gomorrah could have been saved, all those wicked cities on the plains, if there was 10 righteous people. Let that sink in. 10 righteous people could have saved that whole area. Just 10. God wasn't asking for 10,000. God wasn't asking for 100,000. He wasn't even asking for 10. He got all the way down, to 100. He got all the way down to 10. He started at 50 and Abraham talked him down to 10. Think about it. So what you do does matter. What we do is important. Notice in verse 12, sow to yourself in righteousness, reap in mercy. If you want to start doing something, do what's right. Do what's right. We know what's right for a Christian to do. We know what's wrong for a Christian to do. Encourage those around you to do what's right. Praying, reading your Bible, studying, tithing, visiting, inviting people to come, telling people about Christ. These are all positive things. Gifting missions. These are all positive things. And the more you do that, what happens? The more you get to reap in righteousness. What that does is that begins to soften the outside of the heart. It begins to take away that layer on the outside. Have you ever tried to plow a field for the first time? If you've ever tried to do it, it's an experience. If you do it with a tiller, it will beat you to pieces. Man, you can totally walk behind tillers and all that stuff. Let me tell you something. You hit new ground with it, ooh, it's still going to buck on you. It's going to buck on you. Why? Because it's hard. And the first time you till it, you got to make sure it's sort of dry because you don't want to bog down tilling it. And you start tilling it, guess what? It's going to beat you up. I'm telling you, man, it'll down the road you go. Why? Because that ground's hard as a rock. Now, when you get past the surface, you begin to find good ground. See, that's the thought in verse 12. Sow to yourself in righteousness, reap in mercy. If we start sowing good things, we're going to start reaping the fruit of good things. And then that allows us to break up our fallow ground. It allows us to break up that hard soil. It allows that soil now to be able to take good seed. Now it can bring forth a good harvest. You know, you plant seed in a prepared garden and it grows and you keep it watered and you're amazed what I do. My wife in those pots in the back and stuff, she got some tomatoes right now. Kill a fella if you hit him with it. I mean, they're huge. I think Hayden had one in the back while ago holding it in two hands. Was that you that had it back there in two hands? I mean, she grew them out of a bucket. 65-gallon drum, I understand, but still, people, it's a bucket. But you know what? If the ground wasn't prepared, would they grow like that? No. That's what God's trying to get us to see. You can't control what they do. You can't. If they come in and decide to vote Star Spangled Banner as being illegal, we're still going to sing it in church. I sing it just to make them mad. But what are we going to do? I can't stop them. I can't go out to California and tell them the worst thing y'all fixing to do is to take a historical figure that most of America's in love with, his name off the airport. They're trying to take John Wayne's name off the airport out there. Yeah. Man's got an honorary Congressional Medal of Honor from Congress. And you're going to take his name off an airport? They took Woodrow Wilson's name off the graduating class. President Woodrow Wilson. Because he made a remark they claimed is racist. I can't stop everything out there is racist in case you can figure it out. Yeah. The best one I heard the other day was math is racist. And that's a lie. I can prove it to you. White people flunk math too. If you start and you look at a class of 100 people and you say, how many of y'all really passed math rather than by the seat of your pants? You know what? Two people raise their hand. The other 98 ain't going to raise their line. You know I'm telling the truth. They said math. I think math is just prejudice against people. Anytime you merge alphabet and math, you got issues. And as I heard one guy say, his son came in and said, Dad, I need help with this problem. He looked and said, what's the problem? He said, I need to find X. He said, son, X was missing when I was in school. They ain't found it yet.